So let's talk about breaking bad habits in your business and in your life and start talking about creating new good habits for business success. Now, I'm not going to talk about the top 10 habits that millionaires have or the top 10 habits that successful entrepreneurs have. Instead, I'm going to talk about what really matters here. How do you actually break those bad habits that's holding you back, and how to create new ones that help you to grow your business and become the entrepreneur that you want to be. So here's what you need to know before we dive into how to actually break those bad habits. You need to understand that your brain is designed to create habits, right? The more you do something, the more your brain takes it in as a habit, the more it starts to form that action as a habit. So I want you to imagine this. You wake up in the morning, the very first thing you do, you hit your alarm clock, you march straight into your bathroom, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you walk downstairs or you go into your kitchen and you prepare yourself breakfast. All those things are done without thinking consciously. You wake up, you hit your alarm clock, you didn't go, I gotta hit your alarm clock. Now I gotta stand up and walk into the bathroom. Now I gotta pick up my toothbrush and I gotta start brushing my teeth. All those things were done without thinking. You were not consciously even thinking about your next actions, right? So all those things are habits. In fact, I would say that everything in our life is a habit. Everything that you do is a habit. Your morning ritual is a habit. The breakfast that you eat is often a habit. Do you like to drink your coffee in the morning, right? So all those things are habits. Your brain is trained to create habits. Now, where a lot of people struggle with breaking bad habits in their business and in their lives is that they often try to use something called their willpower, right? So using willpower to try to break any bad habit. For example, you gotta show up in your business. You gotta show up consistently. You gotta create consistent content, but you are too lazy. You're too lazy to show up and you prefer to watch Netflix instead. That's a bad habit, right? You know that's a bad habit. And so you're trying to break that bad habit by using your willpower to start creating content. So you're like, I'm not going to watch Netflix. I'm not going to watch Netflix. I'm going to create content. I'm going to get up early and I'm going to use those free time and start creating content. And it doesn't work out because you're trying to use your willpower to break a habit. So what do we know about willpower? Willpower is a conscious act. So what do I mean by that? Using your willpower, you will yourself into making those sales calls that you normally wouldn't do. So you will yourself to pick up the phone, to dial that number, and to call that prospect and ask for that sale. You will yourself to emailing someone that you don't know and you know this person's it's gonna be a great prospect. And even though you're afraid, you will yourself into doing it. So that is willpower. It's using your conscious mind. You're consciously thinking about it. Now, what do we know about habits? Habits are unconscious actions, right? So you're not consciously thinking about what to do next, how to do it. It's all unconscious, right? This, like the example I gave you. You wake up, you stand up, you go into the bathroom. All those things are unconscious. You're not consciously thinking about it. And so that's the difference between that. When you're trying to break a bad habit with willpower, you're trying to use a conscious action to break an unconscious thing. And it's not going to work out. Right? It's not gonna be a permanent solution. You might see some short-term change. Maybe you will yourself into waking up earlier so that you get more things done. But after a while, you stop waking up early. Why? Because you're trying to will yourself into doing it, and it's not as powerful as an unconscious or subconscious thing like a habit. So when it comes to breaking bad habits and creating good habits for business success, there are two questions that you want to ask yourself that's going to help you to break those bad habits. Now, the very first question that you want to ask yourself is, what is the internal story that I'm telling myself that makes a habit difficult to break? So what do I mean by that? For example, if you find it very difficult to be disciplined, and you know that being disciplined is a great habit to have as an entrepreneur, but you find yourself very, very, very difficult and adverse to the idea of being disciplined and committed in your business and showing up as you said you would. What is the internal story that you're telling yourself that's stopping you from showing up as a disciplined entrepreneur? Could it be one of the stories that you're telling yourself is, I'm not a disciplined person. I've never been a disciplined person. I've never been a disciplined student. I've never been a disciplined kid. Now as an adult, I'm not a disciplined person. I always don't do the things that I said I would. It's just me, right? It's just me. It's just how I was brought up. Things just don't get done. And I procrastinate, right? So that's another story you tell yourself. I procrastinate. I say I'll do something and I don't really set myself up for success. So what is that internal story that you're telling yourself right now with regards to any bad habits that you're trying to break, right? So for example, something that's outside of work, smoking. A lot of smokers, they tell themselves, well, I am a smoker. I've been smoking since I was X amount of age, right? That is the internal story they tell themselves. I am a smoker. So ask yourself, what is the internal story that you have about any bad habit that you are trying to break right now? What are you telling yourself internally, subconsciously, that you don't realize is actually forming the identity that you have right now as an entrepreneur, this bad habit that you have? Now, once you know what that internal story that you're telling yourself about any bad habit that you have, whatever identity that you feel is attached to that bad habit, once you know what that is, the easiest way to rewire and rewrite that story inside of you, the internal story inside of you, is to create a brand new story around that, right? So, for example, if you're trying to show up as a more resilient entrepreneur, a good habit as an entrepreneur is to be resilient. You never back down in the face of failure. And so, you know that to rewrite that story, you want to write that story as though as you are already a resilient entrepreneur. And one of the best ways to rewrite your internal story is through things like hypnosis, self-hypnosis. Those are great tools that really tap into your subconscious and start to change the internal story, right? Because if you're trying to will yourself to become a resilient entrepreneur, you're trying to tell yourself and will yourself to show up to be that determined entrepreneur that you want to be. Like I said, willpower is not enough to break that internal story inside of you, that subconscious and unconscious habit that you've already created over the years, right? The story you've been telling yourself over the years is not going to be as easy to break with just pure willpower. So now that you already know what the internal story is, you want to break it by changing that story. And you change it with a tool like hypnosis and self-hypnosis. And then besides the internal stories that you tell yourself about your habits, I want you to also ask yourself, are you personalizing your habits? Now, what do I mean by that? So, for example, for me personally, I work out really often. So I work out, 4 or 5 times a week. And those are habits. Those are habits that I built over time, right? So my body, unconsciously, when I wake up, the first thing I do is, if it's a day that I always set aside for working out in the morning, I wake up and my first thought is, let's go work out. And over time, I start to personalize those habits. So, for example, over time, I start to call myself, I'm a fit person. I'm a healthy person. I work out often. I'm an athlete. I love working out. So I personalize those habits. Now, are you personalizing habits in your business? The bad habits, for example, are you personalizing any bad habits in your business? Are you saying things to yourself like, oh, I am a night owl and I cannot wake up early. I'm not a morning person. I'm not an evening person. I am not a sales call type of person. I'm not a cold outreach kind of person. I'm an introvert and I will never get myself into a room full of strangers. I will never speak on stage. I am not good at public speaking. I am not good at connecting with people. What are the bad habits that you're personalizing right now? And you take it so personal that you cannot see yourself breaking from it because you feel like it makes you who you are. It's almost part of your DNA, right? And so what you got to realize is that your habits do not make you. Habits can be changed. Habits can be transformed. And so therefore your habits do not make you who you are. You got to realize that because a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people see their habits as an extension of themselves, right? I'm an evening person. I cannot work in the morning. I cannot wake up early because I work better at night. Really, you're just programming your brain to work better at night. If you reprogram your brain, you can work early in the morning or you can work super late at night. It's the habits that we create over time, right? It's how we train our brain to create habits. And now the second thing that you need to know about breaking bad habits and creating good habits for business success is understanding that habits, they are created over time. They're created over actions that are done consistently, and they're created when you are committed to showing up and the attitude that you have, right? Like I mentioned earlier, your brain creates habits. Your brain creates habits because you're doing something over and over and over again over a period of time, and your brain starts to take those things and create it as a habit, right? So if every single morning I wake up and the first thing that I jump straight to my coffee machine, over time that becomes habit. That becomes a habit. I gotta have my morning coffee. I gotta do something because I do it every single day. So if you want to break a bad habit and you want to start creating new habits, then the very first thing that you gotta realize is that it's consistency. Over a period of time, that's how you create new habits. So for example, say you want to create a habit, a good habit in your business right now that revolves around creating content. And you've been struggling with creating content because it's just not natural for you to show up on your podcast or your video and you're not that committed. Now I want to challenge you to do something every single day, every single week, creating content. Over a period of time, the more you show up creating content for YouTube, the more you show up creating content for social media, the more it becomes a habit, a good habit in your business. And so if you want to break a bad habit and you want to create good habit for business success, you gotta show up consistently. You gotta do that same action over and over again. And then you gotta come in with the right attitude. You are committed to it. You're not half-arsing it, right? You're not trying to, do something for a few days and don't do it for a week and then come back again for a few days and then you go off. You gotta change that story, right? You gotta change that internal story. You gotta be committed. So let me know in the comments below, what bad habits are you trying to break and what good habits are you trying to create right now? Personally for me, what habit I'm trying to create right now is to show up more often on my Instagram. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, definitely go check me out on Instagram at ThisIsChristabel. I would love to connect with you. That's what I'm working on right now. So let me know in the comments below, what are you working on right now? What habits are you trying to build in your business? Alright, so if you found this video useful, definitely do hit the like button, the subscribe button, and also the bell notification button so that you get notified the next time I upload a new video. Alright guys, I appreciate you and I'll catch you in the next video.